Welcome to Board Ghost, a story broadcast with games as the engine.
If living is a highway, then heaven is a bus stop. Been waiting for a minute there, but has it been forever? 'Cause dying don't agree with me, no.
We leave you out there, hungry for stories for shared experiences. We can't see you, can't hear you, yet we will play for you. This night's offering is the game Dialect. To learn how we generate stories playing the game of Dialect, go check out our Dialect Rules Primer. Dialect is from two great designers, and I'm not going to try pronouncing their names because I botch it every time. You can hear me botch their names in our Dialect Primer. All right, so our players, myself, John Holt with me,
Ken Breese.
and...
Hey, Joe Desimone.
All right, welcome.
Joe
John.
Desimone for the
Hey.
first time. Welcome.
What?
Yay.
This is our second time playing, and Joe, this is your first time playing.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing we're going to do is pick our isolation.
The compound. We've seen what's to become of the world, and we're not interested in being a part of it any longer. 200 strong in number, we decided to make 1982 the year that we found ourselves a new home. We built our compound at a breakneck pace. Until recently, we still had to venture to the outside world from time to time for necessary supplies. How we dreaded those departures and longed to be back among our own again. Mercifully, those days are now behind us. And for 20 years, we have known true solitude. We have walls, we have barracks, and we produce enough food that we will never have to set foot in the outside world again.
Okay, so we have the compound. We are playing the castle. It is the early 80s. We have...
20 years. It's 2002.
Oh, yeah. It is now 2002.
20 years have passed since we've
All
been
right.
in here.
So we live in a quarantine zone in an area that is, Chernobyl or something. Like there was a meltdown or maybe a missile leaked or something. And so in this series of silos that have been shut down, one of them is less radioactive, and we've taken up home there and tried to make it fit for living as much as we can, and also used it to do our experiments. And so that gets to our aspects where we believe, based on the speculative fiction of Mary Shelley, that science did not go down the full exploration of the paths it could have gone down. And so we believe in proactive evolution of doing what some might consider illegal or unethical experiments to bring about the next stage of humanity, or something beyond ourselves. And we are kept safe by this quarantine zone. And that's it. And we have our three characters.
All right, I am Dr. Franklin Becker. My common name is Vicktor because I am a zealot, and the aspect that I most closely identify with is Mary Shelley as our prophet. And I have taken on the name Vicktor as something of an honorific, but I take it so seriously that I don't actually refer to myself by my given name anymore. And I am starting to slip and see myself more and more as the literal embodiment of Victor Frankenstein.
What aspect relationships do you have, and what role to the isolation? Well, let's start with what's your role in the isolation.
Sure. My role in the isolation, as it states, there's a right way for the isolation to live. You know what way that is. You will convince the others. People talk to you about your followers. I only identify with one of the aspects. In this case, specifically, Mary Shelley is our prophet, and I take it much too far. As someone who associates with Victor Frankenstein, I see it as my role kind of twofold. One, considering Victor Frankenstein's role in kind of the frame narrative of Frankenstein, I am a cautionary tale to the younger generations to not pursue things as deeply as I have, though I'm still pretty much stalwart about pursuing them as deeply as I do. But at the same time, I also see it as my duty and kind of as my destiny to be the one to give rise to this new life. Like, fundamentally, it falls on my shoulders to do this.
So I am playing the man who is commonly known as Dr. Francis Tine. He's called by those who know somewhat about him as the monster. His role in the isolation, he is the ruler. He has ultimate power in the isolation, at least on paper, and his will should always come to pass as far as he sees it. And people talk to Dr. Francis Tine, when they seek enforcement.
Okay.
So he's sort of, I mean, in a society where we use information to silo people and maintain an order or structure, he holds a lot of those strings.
Yeah.
Uses information to punish people, uses knowledge of what other people are doing to undermine people. He's definitely like cold and calculating and may not be on mission, but he identifies with two aspects. He identifies particularly with the quarantine zone because it maintains the bubble. He has enough variables at hand that he can maintain it in his head and keep control on it. The outside things beyond that, it introduces too much chaos for him. So he wants things ordered and organized, and that sort of his cold justice comes in from that. The other aspect he identifies with is the proactive evolution, this idea that he's going to, with this information and in this bubble, in this controlled group that he is part of, that he's going to bring he's excited to bring about this change, fulfill the experiments, and doesn't want anyone getting in the way of that. But he fears Mary Shelley and the sort of prophecy and this work of fiction, which is open to interpretation, is something that's not hard facts, is not data. So that is one aspect that's one aspect he fears. It's outside of his realm of control. It's not something that he wrote.
Yep.
And he's not the one who has set about the interpretation, even though he has taken advantage of the situation that they're in to gain his position.
Okay. My character is the celebrity. We all recognize you. Silence descends on any room you enter. Heads turn. People talk to you about the latest gossip. I am Lisa Spillson. I am a descendant of Mary Shelley. The blood of her line is in my veins. People call me Lula, which is her granddaughter's name, Mary Shelley's granddaughter's name. So that's just affectionately what people sort of have started to call me. I am the historian of the isolation of the castle. I am the record holder, the record keeper. I find that this brings me a lot of power because I'm able to synthesize all the different work that's going on and make it available to everyone. I don't hoard information. I freely share it, except for the information I do hoard and I don't share with them. So there are secrets that I'm a secret holder for sure. I want to maintain my status as a celebrity. Because of that, I think I'm identifying with one aspect, which is the Mary Shelley. And that's what made me famous, just being part of this. So probably came to the reading groups later on. I wasn't one of the first people there, but as it became more popular, I was contacted and I got really into it and totally took it on as my own. I think that's about it. So I maintain the archives. We try to do computer archives, but a lot of it is written as well at this point. I also am the person who has been able to to disseminate how we create our chemicals here. I mean, we have to create all this medical, I'm not medicine per se, but materials, whether they be isotope, like I don't even know, I'm not a scientist, but it's like we have to create all this stuff that we then use. I mean, obviously I think we're probably mining and using some of the sort of leftover materials from the nuclear site that we're on. Anyways, that's maybe getting too into it. But that's me. I'm the celebrity, Lula.
So Lula's your main name.
Lula is
What is the name that only some people call you?
So Lula is the name that only some people call me. Lisa Spillson is my name.
Okay, so who are the people that only call you Lula?
I think... Yeah, I guess that's tough because I wanted it to be more like a nickname, like everyone used it. But I guess it's
right. Well, so then that's why I'm saying flip it, right?
Then maybe flip it.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly it. So let's flip it. So my main name,
your common name is Lula.
Exactly, and then the name that
some people call you.
Don't particularly like. I've sort of left behind. I think in some ways, like I don't.
Right.
Like Lisa Spillson is not someone I care to be.
She's not the celebrity.
Not the celebrity, that's for sure. Yeah.
So that's our team. That's our compound. So we're going to start rolling into generating our words and playing it out. Does anyone have something that jumps out to them within their cards?
To start us off, it is resource, vital resource for us, without which we would be lost. I'm going to say children. Children are a resource
Okay.
in our eyes. And I'm going to say that we refer to children as Adams,
Okay.
specifically.
So what aspect is that attached to?
I'm going to go with Mary Shelley because the reason I chose Adams
Mm-hmm.
is that although we very commonly know Frankenstein's monster as simply called the monster, in fact, Mary Shelley, in her own notes and when she was alive and spoke in the book, referred to the monster as Adam, like the first man. So I'm going to say that we have come to call all children similarly because we view them similarly. What someone does to get more.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, so based on that, which characters are in the scene?
I personally want the monster to be in this scene.
Okay.
Mhm.
If you're okay with
Sure,
being in
yeah,
the scene.
Awesome. So it's between Victor and the monster. That's
Okay.
right. Or Victor and Dr. Francis.
So the question that would come up next is, where are we and what are we doing?
All right, so I'm gonna throw something out there just to let people preemptively X-card it if they feel like that's appropriate. I want to say that we abduct children. The question came up earlier, do we go topside?
Mm-hmm.
And I think only a very small number of us go topside, and it is largely to get supplies, and children are supplies.
Yeah, I think maybe a tweak on that where we have like active recruiting of young women.
Okay.
Particularly ones who are like in trouble.
Okay.
And so that's like that way we can also run in utero experimentation.
Yeah.
So
and-
it's less like child abduction.
Cool.
It's more like young women who may have a little more agency in us indoctrinating them into the cult a little bit, but they may also be only getting a very specific aspect of our society as part of that.
So there exists book clubs outside
Right.
of
Yeah.
us that have continued to go on out throughout the years that funnel us this resource.
Okay.
Right.
Is that right? Is
So
it
it's
just
less
women or is it men and women?
It can be, I'd say it can be
Or
both.
boys
Like
and
it
girls.
can be
Yeah,
young
members.
couples and stuff,
Yeah.
but maybe that's like the more like, maybe they get the angle of like free love and like
Mhm.
communal raising of children, and they
Mhm.
don't really get they aren't siloed into the other aspects of
Yeah.
like, what we do or whatever. This is
So
Yeah.
maybe we have like a topside organization that funnels members into
Yeah.
like the real thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's cool. Yeah. Because then it goes along well with that we don't ever leave.
Yeah.
People just come to us. We don't ever
Right.
go topside. We don't, or whatever. We don't ever leave the castle.
So where are we and what are we doing? That I consider is that we are like, what's that called? Like basically not like incubator, but we're like on sort of a raised platform looking through some like angled glass down on like rows and rows of like infants
Dais?
in beds kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like an
that's-
operating theater sort of
Yeah, it's
deal?
like an operating theater, but like, or our version of it, like tweaked to be nursery.
Sure.
So it's like rows of children in bassinets,
Okay.
but like us kind of up above
Like an
and
observation
underlit.
deck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sinisterly underlit or something.
As a
So
location.
that's where we are. What are we doing?
Inspecting the new crop.
Okay. This latest batch is promising. These atoms look fresh. This is interesting. It's always exciting to get new material.
I agree. It's been a long time since we've had such an excellent crop of genetic diversity. It feels like for the past number of years, all of the prospective members that we've been screening and eventually letting in, they've all been very similar, and I feel like it's put something of a stall on some of the better work that we're doing. But whatever's happening up there these days, it seems like entirely new types of people are finding the message, and I've got to say, it's very encouraging.
Yeah, it's nice to also consider that with new atoms coming in, that we could also start to, try some new stuff ourselves, take some different tacks with our research.
Well, how do you mean?
Well, we're noting that there are changes out there, and
So we assume.
we've maintained certain experiments for a long period of time without modification. I think it's potentially time that we adjust, that we alter some of our direction.
Well, sure. I mean, iteration is the foundation of progress. If that's not why we're here, then Mary knows I have no idea why we are, but I'd be cautious. We don't want to divert too much from our mission. I mean, we're only, a couple of decades into this project? We have to think on a longer time horizon. Yes, we have new atoms, we have brown atoms, we have God, I think even some of our Adams come from Russian families. Can you believe? But, I think we need to stay the course, just for a generation or so more, to see what comes of it. I mean, God knows some of the stalls in progress that we've had from old-fashioned white American families. Well, it might be some entirely unknown deficiency with the average white population. That can you imagine if the key is just, oh, we needed more diversity after all?
Yeah, I'm excited. And if anything, we should just try to get more diversity. And again, start doing some varied experiments with more subjects. I think that's where we need to be. I think just more subjects in general will help. And to my end, I think that getting away from just chemical baths and electricity could be a good start. I think there might be some interesting new methods we could try.
Sounds like the scene. Yep. Yeah? Is that it?
Yeah.
All right.
We're gross monster people.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Just going right into that.
I have a word. Technology is the word.
Mm-hmm.
The aspect I'm going to key it to is our proactive evolution. Our proactive evolution. Technology says a vital tool for the isolation. It may be something from the outside world or something we've developed ourselves. The prompt for the scene is technology gone wrong. The actual word is sort of escaping me, but I'm really interested.
Well, how does it come about?
I'm really interested in this because I want it to be something that we have created here. This is the product of the 20 years so far. This is the thing that is special that we have created that allows us to continue our work. I'm not sure what that thing is right now. I mean, maybe I want to call it the serum or something like that. This is the thing that we do, or this is the substance or material that we have been able to create or distill that allows us to push the boundaries, to really push.
Right.
And so I'm thinking it has something to do with the radiation here, possibly. So I'm not sure. I almost want it to be its own new word. Otherwise, I think it would be something like the accelerant. It's
Right.
some label basically for this technology that we've created.
I mean, it could also be if it's a chemical,
Mhm.
on a periodic table,
Yeah.
selenium or something.
Well,
where we've-
that's basically what I'm sort of dancing around, is that we've created a new element.
right.
We've created something that has never existed before and
or discovered, yeah.
discovered it, as it were. So maybe then it's something that we are really proud of, and it's something that we do associate or name at least after something in the book or something.
Well,
from
here's
Mary
something. Does
Shelley.
it have any other properties?
I want it to. I want it to have would be weird. I want it to be
I
our
keep-
weird
Does
magic
it
blood.
glow or
I
have a
keep
hum?
thinking of
Definitely had glows.
Herbert West Reanimator, if you know
Mhm.
that.
His serum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So serum. I mean, should we
Yeah.
just go with that? I mean, that's sort of where
Who's using it, and is it a science thing?
it is.
basically
science.
which
It is a-
direct? Is there this is the name that everyone refers to it to, or is this a name that after many iterations and much experimentation, it's
This is the name that everyone uses. This is the name that's this is the thing that
Yeah. Right.
we're.
because it could be if there's this is how it's commonly referred to, and this is the slang that became the name for it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of this is
Mhm.
this is tuberculosis, and now it's consumption
Right.
kind of thing.
Right. Right.
That,
What do you think it does?
Yeah. What I think it does is it allows us to put people's body parts on other people. Almost think of G.I. Joes that you unscrewed and then put their arms and legs and heads on other people. It allows us to amputate and reattach. Swapper.
crazy glue. Swapper.
Swapper's good.
Swapper.
I think
Sure.
let's go with that.
I'll do it.
Yep. Yeah, Swapper's perfect. It's the Swapper. Awesome. I think in this scene then are Lula and Vicktor.
And the prompt again is
Technology gone wrong.
Cool. And where are you?
Yeah,
guys?
where are we? We're in my personal domicile, my cave, as it were, my concrete hallway that I have turned into my dwelling. I think that it is covered with antique Victorian era type draperies, heavy rugs, heavy furniture, mirrors. There's a record player here with records that were not current in the 80s. They were probably much older, of older music. I tend to love historical stuff. I'm a historian. I'm interviewing you. Like, I have asked you to come here so that I can interview you for the historical record so that this can be entered into our histories. I am dressed in what a lot of us wear, which are like galoshes, almost like suits that we're in. There's sort of suits that are trying to protect us from radiation to some degree, trying to keep materials off of our skin. In my home, I think I would doff that stuff and I would wear instead like a robe, like just like almost like a kimono. Yeah, like
It's very 80s.
Yeah, exactly. It's this weird red patterned kimono that I am wearing. And I get out my stenograph and I like turn it on and like I put the microphone in front of us.
And what are you doing? Like, what's happening?
I'm interviewing him for the historical record, specifically because of the new developments with the swapper. Can you tell me about that? I've heard reports that it didn't work on subject 3576.
That is correct. Unfortunately, we've yet to ascertain exactly what happened in that case, but thankfully there's been no repeats. In fact, in all other cases, it has worked fantastically. I'd say that if that were the only thing that the project ended up accomplishing, we would have made history, would have set out to do exactly what we've done, and we've accomplished it in spades.
We're fulfilling the message.
We are indeed.
Even now, it's clear to me that what was prophesized is coming. We're doing the work, but I'm bowled over. What are the specifics? How did it fail? Did it just not take? Did the subject perish?
So, unfortunately, the subject did eventually perish, though not immediately. It seems as though the tissue failed to graft. And we went through our records, and it might have been sloppiness on the part of an assistant researcher, though frankly, I doubt it. The only people involved with that case were all, higher tier, people who truly deserve the recognition that they've been given in our community. It might have been some sort of genetic failing or abnormality on the part of the patient, but however worried I was at the time, frankly, the years of development since, the complete lack of failure in all further cases, has even a skeptic like me believing that what we have accomplished here is almost foolproof.
It's very important that we squash any talk about this failure. I've already heard a few rumors here and there, people questioning the message, questioning Swapper.
Well, you know what they say, nothing volunteers you faster for the program like questions.
That's what they say. That's true.
No, I kid. All people who end up having the gift bestowed upon them, obviously are volunteers.
And how is the manufacturing of the Swapper going? Do we have enough?
Well, we have enough for experimentation purposes.
Good.
We have contact, obviously, with our less lucky neighbors topside. And they have been on something of an acquisition binge of chemical manufacturing plants and are going to start the process of converting them for production of Swapper so that eventually this fine work that we've been doing can be disseminated in a more palatable sense to the uninitiated, let's call them, who sadly still live in the surface world.
Yes. The uninitiated, they don't understand the work that we are doing here.
Well, can you blame them?
I can't, but once they realize that we are creating a way to live forever, this entire world will change.
And that, my dear Lula, is the real work. Swapper is merely a tool.
Yes.
To getting people to truly open their minds in the way we all have.
Yes. Well, I will finish up this report. If you need to see it, I will have it filed. And if you do need to go through any of the other reports, just ask. We'll make it very open to you. Perhaps we can figure out what happened with this instance with subject 35676. But for now, we'll mark it as an abnormality.
All right. And you drew a new card.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So last scene in this age, I'm going to do the future. I'm actually going to attach this aspect to the quarantine zone.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's actually going to be attached to the proactive evolution.
Cool.
The prompt here is how we refer to what is yet to come and what it means to us.
Yeah.
It's an important event in the future, or a future is a broad concept.
Yeah.
So for us, this word is, I don't know the word yet, but the root that, how we came to it was that we wanted to, or we look to having a successful crop of
Atoms.
Yeah, of atoms, of like the new person who
Mm-hmm.
can survive out in this world, that we're potentially, I don't know whether like being afraid of the bomb and us living in a place of radiation has like that there's this sort of like that I don't know yet. I mean, this is something we could play with, but that there's this sort of sense of like inevitable self-destruction, and so we're creating a crop of new people to kind of crawl out of the wreckage of an inevitable like apocalypse. So
I just want to say, we are just straight monsters.
Yeah. Not only that, I mean, it's the idea that they could then repurpose other genetic material to continue to replace their own body, to continue to move forward.
Well, like what jumps out to me is maybe like Eden.
That's cool.
Like we're
that's the future.
Or the garden. Like the idea that the earth is going to be destroyed through man's failing or whatever, through the failing of humanity, and that our atoms, the men and women that we create, will be the seeds for a new Eden, like a new type of humanity.
I love it.
With the right thinking or whatever.
So is the future state Eden, or is it what precedes Eden, like where the atoms actually emerge? What is that time where the atoms emerge but before Eden is created? Would
I
that
mean
be
there's
the
two
future?
like, so the broad concept maybe is like the Eden of the future, but is there? It can be one or the other. If it's a specific event, it's whatever that rollout would be.
Right. The implementation or something like that.
Implementation,
Genesis.
seeding, Genesis.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, whichever one you're into, John.
I'll go with Genesis.
Yeah,
I think
Genesis
that's
I also like.
And specifically, it's like it's the rollout of atoms post-apocalypse. I'm going to say that all three of us are in this scene.
Sick.
And I'm going to say that, and the prompt here is we have different visions. Okay. So where we are is, and I'm going to throw this out there, you guys, let me know what you think. We are just like peaking above surface level in a bunker, like a lead-lined bunker with like a lead-lined pane of thick glass, and we're kind of looking through this out over towards the eternal sunset that is like the source of radiation in this area, and what we're doing, and again, this is open for interpretation, we are about to launch a crop of test atoms towards the like heart of this radiation field.
Got it. Towards the eternal sunset.
Going back for 1 second, where is this radiation field from? Did the world just end?
No, I guess the way I'm kind of seeing it is like whether it's like a melted down nuclear power plant or like a missile, like like some missile field of like a half dozen
so
missiles.
So it's like a Fukushima sort of deal where like it's real, it's there, normal people don't go near it.
It's this like cordoned off hot spot, and we live like just inside the circle, in like probably inside the circle, but in this bunker that sort of protects us from it.
Yeah.
And the other bunkers are closer and more irradiated, and like right just over the horizon here.
I mean, we chose this spot very specifically. We chose coming to this place very specifically because we knew we wanted to test the atoms against this.
Gotcha.
Like that this was like the final.
Right.
Like this
so
is
it's
to
a
make or break.
source of material for our experimentation, and it's a source of like a location to test our creations against adversity.
Cool.
And so we're about to do that. Like I don't know if we call them the races or whatever, but we're about to sort of open the gates and release a bunch of like swapped out atoms onto this field and see how far they get, and if any can make it back with the allotted like token that they're told to return with. And so we have different visions, and we're watching these things be launched out into the waste.
Atoms are kids, right?
My feeling is that atoms are 12, 13. Yes, they are adolescents.
All right,
Not maybe not children,
Yeah.
but those people, those children, as it were, who are going into puberty. I think
Gotcha.
that's more where their bodies are changing.
Cool.
We're administering more drugs to them. Things are happening.
All right.
We start taking their arms and legs off.
Putting them on each other.
Putting them on each
Right.
other. Yeah. That's all.
Cool.
That's
Fun
all.
stuff.
Very,
Good
very.
times.
Yep. Very normal. Very normal. They know no other life.
The big game, the task is
Exactly.
to cross the field and
Mhm.
return with the ball.
Yep.
Mhm.
And if you can do that successfully, you will be rewarded.
Yep.
So we've just sort of we hit the red button,
Mhm.
the big doors go up.
This is what Genesis is going to be like. This is it. This is exactly what it's going to be like.
We're getting closer. There's no doubt about that.
I just think about it every time, whether we're alive or not, to see it. This is what it's going to be like. It's amazing. It's just amazing. I can't get enough of seeing this. I love it every time.
I hope when the day of the true Genesis comes, it'll be as peaceful as this. I mean, just look at them, just walking out into the glow.
It is rather peaceful, isn't it? At least at the start.
Ah, okay. They're starting to drop.
First one down. I would contend, and this is why I think that we should start talking about augmentation outside of biological. That there might be some outliers in the population. It won't just be a simple peaceful seeding of atoms. That they're gonna have to be able to defend themselves and forcefully take back some of this landscape.
I mean, we can go back and forth on this, and certainly we already have. But if they can only take it back, but they can't reproduce to hold it, it's not like we are going to be there in the end to create more. The final Genesis is going to be the final Genesis. As Mary wrote herself, Victor Frankenstein dies in the end, so will I. All that will be left is Adam going into the waste.
It's what we're working for. We're working so that they don't need to reproduce.
If only.
I mean,
But they will need to take back the land. We've talked about the training regimens. We've talked about different syllabi in terms of martial conditioning.
But I still think that finding variants and variables who not only can survive the waste, defend themselves, but also can propagate, can continue to exist after and potentially carry on our work, that may be the next step.
Propagation. I don't know. Propagation was never a part of Eden.
Sounds a little. I don't want to throw harsh terms around there, but it sounds a little off mission.
No, it's definitely viability is life. And our goal here is to create a new type of life that's going to maintain and continue to grow and outgrow us. That's the goal. Humanity will have destroyed itself, and our goal is to put the new humans, our atoms are the new humans.
Yes, it's
That's-
inevitable that the world
Our
will destroy
genesis
itself.
is to create new life and have it maintain itself.
Oh, there's only 2 left.
Those twins,
Yep.
I knew that 2 heads on one
Yep,
would go far.
You called that 1 years ago, my old friend.
Mm.
But I have to say, it seems a little odd, right? The goal was never to create a species that had to renew itself like we do. That's our central failing. The goal was always to create a species that would never have to go through that process again. I mean, it's all there in the book. We just have to go back to the text.
I think that the danger, the very foundation of our science that we're working with is a level of volatility and change and adaptation. And our space is to force that adaptation, to make something effectively dead and alive that maintains as an immortal, unchangeable being is, forgive me, is not realistic.
You bring up something very interesting that I had not considered before. My ancestor, what she gifted us was not complete. She had no idea if Adam would be able to reproduce on his own. But perhaps she wished it for him. The choice must be theirs, to reproduce or not.
You're talking about later revisionist interpretations of the scripture. I mean, you're talking about those terrible films that came out of Hollywood, of all places. Not what we've actually truly been working toward.
Again, I think we're all to a mind what Genesis is, that we need to continue after Genesis, that we need to seed these atoms into the world when the blind humanity beyond our group destroys this world. But I really do think we need to introduce more variability and flexibility into our systems. I treating these atoms as if we're going to generate immortals, we don't have the time nor the space to generate that. And yeah, I think that we just have to count on the fact that they're going to have a shelf life and that they're going to have to reproduce.
I can't listen to any more of this. I'm terribly sorry. We can reconvene at a later date. It seems as though even the twins are starting to succumb, and I have to get back to the lab to do more work. It's shameful. It's truly shameful to hear you speak like this with so little faith in our work.
I will speak with the other doctors and find out what the consensus might be.
Yeah, mark the distance for the twins. I really thought 8 legs on 2 heads would do it this time.
They just seem to melt together. Yes, it's...
The carapace on the Luger, she was promising. She hasn't boiled over. Perhaps she cooked inside. We'll see if we can get her back for autopsy.
Yes, we'll send out the collectors.
All right. Measure distance and log it.
Done.
Well, good run for the day.
This was great. Great. Yeah, it's just great data. Really great data. All right. Until later.
Gross. All right. So now we're going to do the age transition. So we now shift. So the age one is ended, and this will be a new chapter. So these are our steps. We're going to read the prompt. These are our frameworks, and we're going to choose which one to go with. So here's the prompt as we enter age 2. An event to foreshadow the end of the isolation. It finds its way into all conversation and is impossible to ignore. So this is a new event that's going to find its way into our whole group and into our conversation as impossible to ignore. So there's 2 options. We could either go, we had no choice. The compound would have collapsed without their help. We let an outsider in. We thought we could control it, but they have the ear of someone important. Why have some suggested we should bring in more? So the other one is the outside world has changed. It was dangerous before, but it looks to be far worse now. We smell ash in the air and hear planes overhead at night. There are whispers that war is brewing. How do we pull further into our isolation? So those are the 2 pathways that we can take to bring someone in or that the world outside is changing.
I lean number 2.
As do I.
I think it's historically accurate.
Well, I let's not make any bones about it. This is 14 years after. Now it's 2016.
Yeah. Shit's real bad.
Shit's real bad.
How does the community react to this war? This sort of the danger outside?
I think gleefully.
Yeah.
I think that they're like, yeah.
Promise day's
Like,
coming.
yeah, it's happening soon.
Yeah. Like, I feel like we've been planning to, maybe we're not even going to see Genesis. Like, maybe it's the next generation.
I mean, let's think about ages for a second. If I was 22 when we went in, I'm 42 when we had our last scenes.
Yeah.
Now I'm 56.
Yeah.
So I'm almost 60 years old.
I'm going to say I'm like
know?
in my 80s.
So it's like we're already...
Yeah.
I'm from like my late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Now.
So...
Like tumors and stuff. All
Yeah,
over us.
tumors.
Oh, I'm going to say that, like, I've had a personal crop and I've been using Swapper.
Yeah.
So I've got, like, a bunch of really young parts.
Yep.
Here's the other thing. How do we pull further into our isolation is the other question we need to answer. Do we cut ties with the recruiters and those groups?
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That we cut off the global devotees. Like we're maybe they're getting too close to finding us. Other authority, like
Right.
whatever the situation is.
We've
like
either pulled them in.
Yes.
Like we've
Yeah.
called
them.
people in from the cold, basically.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, like, you got 2 options. One, you're cut off.
Yeah.
Go live what's left of your miserable lives.
Which means we probably ended them.
Yep.
Or 2,
Come in from the cold and
Yeah.
join us. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've tried to destroy traces of our civilization,
Definitely.
our compound to the outside world.
Yeah, those who have joined us definitely did a lot of that dirty work, either killing their peers, burning down buildings, destroying records. Yeah,
So now we have to evolve an aspect. So we're going to choose an aspect to evolve. It's the one in the current age. It's one of these 3. We're changing a part of the isolation in response to the world around it. One possibility is not only do we have the quarantine zone, but we also have erased our connections to the outside world and any knowledge of our existence to the outside is one possibility.
I like changing the quarantine zone. Honestly, I feel like that's the one that we could change without really fucking us over. Because if we change Mary Shelley, that's like a big.
It's a big.
That's
going to
be a big shift for us.
I mean, another one is that
changing
like
proactive evolution is like also
proactive
a very big
evolution. The change there could be that like we've perfected it.
Yeah,
now we're in stages of
like it
implementation.
went way better than we ever thought it would, and we're close. We think we're almost there.
Is that jumping the gun a little bit though?
So why don't we go?
I
with
think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
quarantine zone
zone.
change makes total sense.
So now we're. I mean, how would we describe it? Like
we're eating rad roaches and centipedes, huge centipedes. Just like we've incorporated it into our diet. Like that's the next step. Like we've created the atoms so they can eat radioactive material.
Yeah, we don't even go topside anymore for supplies. So I guess everything. I guess we're kind of like it's not just a quarantine zone. It's almost like a funerary zone because we're preparing to die because there's no way we can last out being cut off. So it's like.
But for Vicktor, you're replacing parts of your body. So you're a certain age, but your body.
Well, for me, it's just so that I can keep doing the work.
Yeah.
Like, I firmly believe it is my destiny to die before this happens.
You are a zealot.
Yep.
Yeah. You are a zealot. Yeah.
So I'm only keeping myself alive. Like, the moment I think we're ready, I'm going to be like, yo, who wants some new parts? Yeah. I got a bunch to spare.
You got a bunch, yeah.
Why don't we say fully buried?
Okay.
That, like, you can take that as premature burial. You can take that as, like, we don't go, like you're saying, we don't go topside. We don't have feelers out in the world. We completely exist effectively underground.
Well, we think we're in the latter stages, or rather the early stages of the seeding, depending on which way.
Yeah.
We interrupt our story here and we'll resume in our next communique. I was one of your players, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho and on Instagram at Born_Ghost. You can find my book club podcast at woundedstab.com and my media review recommendation podcast at newtoyoushow.com. Ken, where can people find you?
Hey, Board Ghosts, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and my own website. All under Burling's Beard, Berlings Beard. I am a concierge dungeon master in the New York City area. Please hire me to run your games. Also, just got back from Gen Con. Was a lot of fun, and I'm really happy to announce that I'm going to be releasing with a number of collaborators something called the Adventure Mixtape, where these are one-shot adventures for D&D that you can throw into any of your D&D games right away.
Cool. And Joe, what about you? Where can people find you?
On Twitter at iHeart. Heart, Fargo, like the brutal Coen Brothers movie. That's pretty much where.
Cool. And do you have any projects coming up or anything you'd like to shout out to?
Yeah, you know what? It's not necessarily coming up and that it's going on all the time, but a shout out to the program that employs me. The Make Room program, hosted by Eline Media. And you can find us at makeroom.elinemedia.com, where we teach kids in the New York City area, but also pretty soon nationally, how to develop games and why games matter. Yeah, so shout out to those guys and the work we do.
That's a good one. It's very important stuff.
Awesome. Cool. So to learn more about the players and the engine in our story, visit boardghost.com. You can help collaborate in making the show by helping us on Patreon at patreon.com/boardghost, where you can get access to the artwork in various wallpaper formats. You can get early access to the second half of an episode, so you get the whole episode on the week it drops, or the whole story rather, instead of one every week. And you can also get access to some exclusive how to play videos. We should have skeletons going up before Gen Con, and we'll figure out what the next one will be from there. And again, you can give us input on that on patreon.com/boardghost. Leave reviews and comments on iTunes, your preferred listening portal. Take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. You can attempt to pierce the veil and contact us at BoardGhostWorld on Twitter. Shout out through the ether if you have desires we can fulfill. We'd like to thank Pat Couples for our theme song and interlude music. You can find more about Pat at patcouples.tumblr.com or on his band's website, hotelsandhighways.com. If you're not alone in the void, share our stories. The more they are consumed, the truer they become.
Dying don't agree with me.